Hello and welcome. As the night settles in, find a comfortable spot, close your eyes, and let your mind drift. Tonight, we journey back in time to the vibrant streets of Paris at the dawn of the 20th century to explore the life of a woman who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. This is the story of Maria Sklodowska, a name you might know better as Marie Curie. Our story begins not in France, but in Warsaw, Poland. On a chilly November day in 1867, little Maria, or Mania, as her family called her, was born into a world of books and quiet intellect. Her father was a professor of mathematics and physics, and her mother, a headmistress at a prestigious school. From her earliest days, Mania was surrounded by the hum of learning. She was a child with an insatiable curiosity, her mind a sponge for every piece of knowledge she could find. She would often be found tucked away in a corner, lost in a book, her eyes wide with wonder. But her childhood wasn't just filled with academic pursuits. It was also shaped by the heavy hand of history. At that time, Poland was under Russian rule, and Polish culture and language were suppressed. Mania's family, deeply patriotic, taught her to love her homeland in secret. This early experience instilled in her a quiet resilience, a steely determination that would define her entire life. She learned that some of the most important things in life must be fought for and protected. Tragedy struck the family early. When Mania was just 7, her eldest sister died of typhus, and a few years later, her beloved mother passed away from tuberculosis. The once lively household fell into a somber silence. This profound loss left a deep mark on young Mania, but it didn't break her. Instead, it seemed to temper her spirit, forging a resolve to make her life count, to do something meaningful. As she blossomed into a young woman, her academic brilliance became impossible to ignore. She graduated from high school at 15 at the top of her class, a gold medal pinned to her dress. But her path to higher education was blocked. In Poland, universities were closed to women. For many, this would have been the end of the road, but not for Mania. She and her sister, Bronisława, made a pact. Mania would work as a governess, sending money to support Bronisława's medical studies in Paris. Once Bronisława was established, she would in turn help Mania. It was a plan born of desperation and sisterly love, a testament to their shared ambition. For 6 long years, Mania toiled away, teaching children in the countryside, stealing moments in the dead of night to study physics, chemistry, and mathematics on her own. She read everything she could get her hands on, her dreams of Paris a distant, flickering candle in the dark. Finally, in 1891, at the age of 24, her time came. With a small amount of savings and a heart full of hope, she boarded a train for Paris. The journey was long and uncomfortable, but for Mania, it was the beginning of her real life. She enrolled at the Sorbonne, the famed University of Paris. She was now Marie, the French version of her name. Life in Paris was a stark contrast to her previous existence. It was a world of intellectual freedom, but also one of profound poverty. She lived in a small, unheated attic garret, surviving on little more than bread, butter, and tea. Winters were brutal. She would pile all her clothes on top of her blanket just to stay warm. Some days, she was so weak from hunger that she would faint during class. Yet, she was happy. For the first time, she was completely free to dedicate herself to her one true passion, science. She absorbed lectures like a desert flower absorbs rain. Her days were spent in classrooms and libraries, her nights in solitary study. The world of science was her sanctuary, a place of order, logic, and infinite possibility. In 1893, she graduated first in her class with a degree in physics. The following year, she earned a second degree in mathematics, finishing second in her class. It was around this time that her life took another fateful turn. She was looking for a larger laboratory space to conduct some research on the magnetic properties of different steels. A Polish friend introduced her to a French physicist who might be able to help. His name was Marie Curie. Pierre was a brilliant yet modest scientist, already well known for his work on crystals and magnetism. He was thoughtful, introspective, and, like Marie, completely devoted to science. They found in each other a kindred spirit. Their conversations were not about trivial matters, but about the very nature of the universe. They shared a passion that few could understand. Pierre was quickly captivated by this brilliant Polish student with her intense gaze and formidable intellect. He proposed marriage, but Marie hesitated. Her plan had always been to return to Poland and teach, but Pierre was persuasive. He wrote to her, "It would be a beautiful thing, a thing I dare not hope, if we could spend our life near each other, hypnotized by our dreams, your patriotic dream, our humanitarian dream, and our scientific dream." His words resonated with her. She realized that with Pierre, she wouldn't have to choose between her personal life and her scientific ambitions. She could have both. In the summer of 1895, they were married in a simple civil ceremony. Instead of a wedding dress, Marie wore a practical, dark blue outfit that she could later use in the laboratory. Their honeymoon was a bicycle tour through the French countryside, a simple, joyful expression of their shared love for nature and each other. Their scientific partnership was as profound as their personal one. They set up a makeshift laboratory in a damp, drafty shed at the School of Physics and Chemistry where Pierre worked. Marie became fascinated by the recent discovery of X-rays and the mysterious rays emitted by uranium discovered by Henri Becquerel. She decided to make these uranium rays the subject of her doctoral thesis. Using a sensitive electrometer designed by Pierre and his brother, she began to meticulously measure the faint electrical currents produced by these rays. She soon discovered that the intensity of the rays depended only on the amount of uranium present, not on its chemical form. This led her to a bold and revolutionary hypothesis. The radiation was not the result of a chemical reaction, but an intrinsic property of the uranium atoms themselves. This idea was groundbreaking. It suggested that atoms, which were thought to be indivisible, might have an internal structure. Her investigation didn't stop there. She tested other elements and found that thorium also emitted similar rays. But then she made a truly perplexing discovery. She found that two uranium ores, pitchblende and chalcolite, were far more radioactive than pure uranium itself. The only logical explanation was that these ores must contain a new, undiscovered element that was incredibly radioactive. Pierre, recognizing the immense importance of Marie's work, set aside his own research to join her in this quest. Thus began one of the most famous collaborations in the history of science. Their goal was to isolate this mysterious new element. It was an arduous, back-breaking task. They obtained tons of pitchblende ore from a mine in Bohemia and began the painstaking process of chemical separation. For 4 years, they toiled in their shed-like laboratory, a space that was poorly ventilated and leaked when it rained. Marie, dressed in a dust-covered smock, stirred huge vats of boiling, bubbling chemicals with an iron rod nearly as tall as she was. It was physically demanding work, more akin to a factory than a laboratory. Yet, through it all, their determination never wavered. In July 1898, they announced the discovery of a new element, which they named polonium in honor of Marie's beloved homeland. But they knew there was another, even more powerful element still hidden in their samples. A few months later, in December, they announced the discovery of a second element. They called it radium, from the Latin word for ray. In 1903, the world recognized their monumental achievements. Marie Curie, Pierre Curie, and Henri Becquerel were jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for their combined work on radioactivity. Marie became the first woman in history to win a Nobel Prize. The honor brought them fame, but it also brought disruption to their quiet, research-focused lives. Tragically, their shared dream was cut short. In 1906, on a rainy Paris street, Pierre was struck by a horse-drawn carriage and killed instantly. Marie was devastated. Her world collapsed. She had lost not only her husband, but her closest scientific collaborator. "Pierre is no more," she wrote in her diary. "There is an end to everything. Everything, everything." The Sorbonne offered her Pierre's professorship, a position he had held. It was an unprecedented offer for a woman at the time. Marie accepted, becoming the first female professor in the university's long history. On her first day of teaching, she walked into the lecture hall, filled to capacity with students and onlookers, and calmly picked up her lecture exactly where Pierre had left off. She poured her grief into her work, continuing the research they had started together. She was determined to create a world-class research institute as a tribute to Pierre. In 1911, her work was recognized once again. She was awarded a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her isolation of pure radium. This made her the first person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes, and to this day, she remains the only person to win the prize in 2 different scientific fields. As we gently drift towards sleep, let the image of Marie Curie, a quiet force of nature, fill your thoughts. A woman who navigated loss and overcame immense barriers, not with loud pronouncements, but with steady, persistent work. Her life teaches us that curiosity is a powerful guide, and that the pursuit of knowledge is a noble journey. It reminds us that even in the darkest, coldest rooms, the brightest discoveries can be made. She lit up the world, not just with the glow of radium, but with the brilliance of her mind and the resilience of her spirit. Sleep well.